The evolving strategic landscape is increasingly defined by the development and deployment of artificial intelligence capabilities, which now act as key determinants of both economic vitality and military strength. In this context, the United States government enacted measures culminating in the framework for artificial intelligence diffusion. This AI diffusion rule establishes direct controls over the essential U.S. inputs, advanced semiconductors, model weights necessary for creating frontier AI models. The operational effect of this rule is the establishment of a distinct, multi-tiered hierarchy regulating international access to these critical technologies. While a restricted circle of designated partners is granted privileged access, the framework places most members of NATO and the European Union into a middle tier, facing significant constraints on acquiring these AI inputs. This stratification carries direct consequences for regions such as Central and Eastern Europe. Recognized as Europe's industrial powerhouse and possessing clear ambitions to integrate advanced AI, this region finds its access limited under the current U.S. framework. A situation thus emerges where policies intended to safeguard America's technological advantage may concurrently impede the technological advancement of key allies, potentially creating friction with broader U.S. strategic objectives focused on alliance capability and cohesion. The potential for nations seeking reliable access to critical technologies to look toward alternative suppliers becomes a tangible factor in this environment. Understanding the precise mechanics and immediate effects of this AI diffusion rule is therefore essential to assessing its impact on allied capabilities and the global technological balance. The specific architecture of this AI diffusion rule places most NATO and EU members into a middle category. Nations within this group, despite close alliance ties to the United States, confront tangible limitations. These include a quantitative ceiling on imports of advanced AI semiconductors, capped at 50,000 units per country through 2027, and demanding security protocols governing access not just to hardware, but also to critical software elements like AI model weights. These constraints directly affect regions poised for technological integration, such as Central and Eastern Europe. This area, with its significant industrial capacity and demonstrated ambitions in AI, exemplified by Poland's substantial investments and high-level partnerships aimed at developing national language models and accelerating AI adoption across key sectors, now faces distinct hurdles. The necessity to navigate stringent U.S.-imposed procedures and quantitative limits inevitably slows the pace at which these nations can leverage frontier AI. Consequently, the economic trajectory of Central and Eastern Europe encounters headwinds generated by this policy. The ability to modernize core industries, particularly automotive manufacturing, which relies heavily on advancements in autonomous systems, AI-enhanced production, and predictive analytics, is directly impacted by restricted access to the necessary high-performance computing components. Legacy sectors risk falling behind technological shifts. Furthermore, this dependence on external policy decisions introduces significant operational uncertainty. Long-term strategic planning and new capital investment within the region's nascent AI sector become precarious when access to foundational technology is contingent upon fluctuating policy frameworks originating from Washington. This environment inherently discourages the risk-taking necessary for innovation and growth, impacting not only regional entities, but also U.S. companies reliant on stable export markets. The potential repercussions extend to the region's technological ecosystem. A scenario emerges where promising AI startups, unable to secure the necessary computational resources domestically due to these restrictions, may be compelled to migrate towards Tier 1 nations with unfettered access. Such an outcome risks prematurely curtailing the development of a strategic technological sector within Central and Eastern Europe, potentially resulting in a significant capability gap relative to unrestricted partners. Reports of dissatisfaction regarding these limitations have already surfaced in various European capitals. Beyond the economic dimension, these restrictions intersect with military modernization imperatives and alliance dynamics. The operational realities highlighted by conflicts such as the one in Ukraine underscore the increasing dependence on AI-driven capabilities, ranging from cyber defense to unmanned systems. Limiting Central and Eastern European access to frontier AI development tools directly impedes their capacity to enhance military effectiveness in line with contemporary requirements. This situation introduces potential friction within the NATO alliance structure. Policies that create differentiated technological access among members can strain cohesion. Moreover, restricting the AI development capacity of European allies appears misaligned with stated objectives encouraging these same allies to assume greater responsibility for collective defense and enhance their own military capabilities. It is noted that while current infrastructure limitations may prevent many nations in the region from immediately reaching the imposed chip quotas, their technological capacity is projected to increase. As these nations develop greater needs for advanced AI inputs, the perception of the United States as an unreliable or overly restrictive supplier, stemming from the AI Diffusion Rule, could incentivize them to seek alternative partnerships. Existing economic relationships may facilitate such shifts. Significant Chinese foreign direct investment is already flowing into parts of the region, Hungary being a prominent example, and established trade links, including those supporting the extensive Central and Eastern European automotive industries supply chains connecting to China, provide pre-existing channels. Should access to U.S. technology remain constrained by policy, these established economic ties could form the basis for a broader exploration of alternative sources for critical AI components, potentially influencing regional geopolitical orientations. From the perspective of U.S. policymakers, these controls represent a deliberate calculation. The stated objective is the preservation of America's lead in critical technologies and the safeguarding of national security interests against potential misuse or acquisition by strategic rivals. This viewpoint accepts potential friction with allied nations as a necessary consequence of prioritizing these core security concerns. However, this calculated trade-off yields operational effects that may run counter to other stated U.S. strategic goals. The very act of limiting allied access, particularly within NATO, potentially undermines alliance cohesion and complicates efforts towards burden sharing and collective capability enhancement, especially in technologically advanced domains critical to modern defense. The potential for these restrictions to inadvertently foster conditions where restricted allies explore alternative technological partnerships presents a further complication. Therefore, the policy designed to secure a technological advantage risks generating unintended geopolitical consequences, potentially weakening the very alliance structures central to U.S. security strategy. Ultimately, the concept of leadership in the artificial intelligence domain extends beyond mere control over physical components and algorithms. It encompasses the capacity to shape the international norms, ethical guidelines, and standards governing AI's development and application globally. Restricting allies from participation at the technological frontier inherently limits their input and engagement in these critical standardization processes. Consequently, by potentially sidelining key partners through broad access controls, the United States risks diminishing its own leverage in guiding the global trajectory of artificial intelligence, an outcome potentially misaligned with long-term strategic influence objectives. A more precisely calibrated approach might be required to balance security imperatives with the maintenance of alliance solidarity and the preservation of influence over AI's global evolution. A closer examination reveals the inherent tension between maintaining technological control and fostering collaborative innovation within strategic alliances. The current structure of the AI Diffusion Rule, with its defined tiers and quantitative limits, reflects a specific approach to managing this tension, prioritizing strict control over broad allied participation at the AI frontier. The breadth of these restrictions, extending beyond specific military applications to encompass foundational AI development capabilities, raises questions about their long-term efficacy in achieving stated security goals without incurring significant strategic costs in allied relations and technological trajectory influence. For regions like Central and Eastern Europe, the impact transcends immediate economic friction or delays in industrial modernization. It fosters an environment where reliance on the United States for critical future technologies appears uncertain. Even if current regional capacities do not yet fully strain the imposed quotas, the existence of these limits, coupled with burdensome access protocols, shapes future planning and investment decisions. As regional technological infrastructure matures, these restrictions are likely to become more acute points of contention, potentially accelerating the consideration of non-US technology sources that offer more predictable access. This dynamic highlights a potential vulnerability in the U.S. strategy. Influence over the global development of AI is not solely derived from controlling access to proprietary hardware and models. It also stems from leadership in collaborative research, development, and the establishment of international standards and ethical frameworks. By limiting the ability of technologically capable allies to participate fully in the advancement of frontier AI, the policy may inadvertently reduce the collective capacity of the US-led alliance system to shape these global norms. A fragmented technological landscape, where key allies pursue independent or alternative development paths due to access restrictions, could ultimately diminish the very influence the controls were ostensibly designed to protect. The operational reality is that technological leadership in a globally interconnected field like AI necessitates a degree of openness and collaboration, particularly among trusted partners. Policies perceived as overly restrictive risk isolating the U.S. technological ecosystem and diminishing its central role in guiding the future trajectory of this transformative technology. Reassessing the balance between security-driven controls and the strategic benefits of deeper allied technological integration appears warranted. Looking beyond the immediate regional effects, the AI Diffusion Rule carries wider implications for the global technological balance and the United States' position within it. The establishment of distinct tiers of access among allies fundamentally alters the dynamics of technology sharing and co-development within the Western Bloc. This approach, while intended to prevent technology leakage to adversaries, concurrently risks creating a less unified and potentially less capable technological front among allied nations when confronting global challenges and competitors. The capacity to set global standards for emerging technologies like AI often correlates with the breadth and depth of the coalition advancing those standards. By creating barriers to participation for a significant number of technologically adept allies, the current framework may inadvertently limit the collective weight behind U.S. preferred norms for AI development, deployment, and ethical governance. A smaller group driving the frontier may find it more difficult to establish global consensus compared to a broader, more inclusive alliance. This situation potentially opens space for alternative frameworks or standards, possibly advanced by competitors, to gain traction among nations feeling excluded or limited by U.S. policy. The long-term result could be a more fragmented global AI landscape, where U.S. influence is diluted not by direct competition alone, but also by the consequences of its own access control policies. Therefore, the strategic calculus underpinning the AI Diffusion Rule must weigh the perceived security benefits of tight control against the potential long-term costs associated with alienating allies, hindering collective innovation, and potentially diminishing the United States' central role in shaping the future of this critical technology domain. The operational effects observed, friction within alliances, economic uncertainty for partners, potential shifts towards alternative suppliers, suggest that the current policy configuration might produce outcomes contrary to overarching U.S. strategic interests in maintaining technological leadership and global influence. Thus, the operational consequences flowing from the AI Diffusion Rule present a complex strategic equation. Policies enacted to secure technological primacy through restricted access appear to generate conditions that could weaken alliance cohesion, impede the collective technological advancement of partners, and create openings for strategic competitors. The very framework designed to control the diffusion of critical AI capabilities may, through its effects on allied planning and access, inadvertently diminish the United States' capacity to steer the global development and governance of artificial intelligence. Ultimately, the pursuit of technological security via broad restrictions risks yielding a strategic landscape where influence is eroded, alliances are strained, and the desired leadership position becomes more challenging to maintain. The trajectory of global AI development and America's role within it hinges significantly on how this inherent tension between control and collaboration is managed. Thanks so much for watching. if you enjoyed this analysis, and be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more geopolitical insights like this. I love hearing your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Share this video with anyone interested in deeper perspectives on current events. Until next time, stay informed and think critically. Thank you.